They saved a drowning dog from lake. What happens next will leave you in tears. The early morning mist hung heavy over Moosehead Lake, shrouding the pine-covered shoreline in a veil of mystery. The only sounds were the gentle lapping of water against the wooden hull of the small fishing boat and the occasional cry of a loon echoing across the stillness. Jack, a man in his late 50s with a weathered face and a shock of gray hair, cast his line with practiced ease. His companion, Bill, a few years younger and built like a bear, sat hunched over a thermos, his gaze fixed on the swirling mist. "Think we'll catch anything today, Jack?" Bill grumbled, his voice rough with sleep. "Patience, Bill," Jack chuckled. "The fish are just waking up. Giving chimi." They settled into a comfortable silence, the rhythm of the lake lulling them into a peaceful reverie. Suddenly, a desperate yelp pierced the quiet. Jack and Bill snapped to attention, scanning the water. "Did you hear that?" Bill asked, his eyes narrowed. "Sounded like a dog," Jack replied, straining to locate the source of the sound. Then they saw it. A small, brown shape struggling against the choppy waves, its head barely staying above water. The dog, a young Labrador retriever, was clearly in distress, its frantic paddling growing weaker with each passing moment. "Oh, Lord," Bill exclaimed, scrambling to his feet. "That poor creature's drowning." Without a word, Jack steered the boat towards the struggling animal. As they got closer, they could see the fear in the dog's eyes, its whimpers growing fainter. "Get the net, Bill," Jack yelled over the wind, maneuvering the boat closer. Bill fumbled with the net, his hands shaking with urgency. With a final surge of adrenaline, the dog managed to get close enough for Bill to scoop it up. The Labrador was limp and shivering, its fur plastered to its thin body. "Easy there, fella," Bill soothed, wrapping the dog in a blanket. "You're safe now." Jack cut the engine and the boat drifted to a stop. They huddled around the shivering dog, their hearts pounding from the rescue. "Poor thing," Jack murmured, stroking the dog's wet fur. "Must have fallen out of a boat or something." As the dog regained its strength, it began to lick Bill's hand, its tail giving a weak wag. "He's a friendly one," Bill said, a grin spreading across his face. "Looks like we made a new friend." Jack noticed a collar around the dog's neck. "He's got a tag," he said, examining the inscription. "Name's Buddy. And there's an address." He read the address aloud. It was in a small town about an hour's drive from the lake. "Well, what do you say, Bill?" Jack asked, looking at his friend. "Think we should return him to his owner?" Bill shrugged. "Guess we should. Can't just leave him here." And so, their fishing trip abandoned, Jack and Bill set course for the address on the dog tag, unaware that this chance encounter with a drowning dog was about to change their lives forever. The drive to the address on Buddy's tag took them through winding country roads, past quaint farmhouses and fields of wildflowers. As they neared the town, the landscape shifted to neat suburban streets lined with tidy houses and manicured lawns. They found the address without much trouble, a modest, single-story house with a porch swing and a blooming rose bush by the front door. Jack parked the truck and they both got out, Buddy trotting happily beside them. Bill hesitated, suddenly feeling awkward. "You think we should just leave him on the porch?" he mumbled. Jack shook his head. "Nah, that doesn't seem right. Let's see if anyone's home." He walked up the steps and knocked on the door. They could hear barking from inside, and then the sound of approaching footsteps. The door swung open to reveal a young woman with kind eyes and a worried expression. "Can I help you?" she asked, her gaze flitting between Jack, Bill, and the wet dog at their feet. "We found your dog," Jack said, gesturing towards Buddy. He was drowning in the lake." The woman's eyes widened in alarm. "Buddy! Oh my God!" "Buddy!" She knelt down and scooped the dog into her arms, burying her face in his fur. "You naughty boy! How did you get out?" Buddy responded with enthusiastic licks and joyful yelps, his tail wagging furiously. "We were fishing on Moosehead," Jack explained, "and we saw him struggling in the water. We managed to pull him out." "Thank you," the woman said, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you so much. I don't know what I would have done if—" She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. "It was no trouble at all," Bill assured her. "Glad we could help." The woman introduced herself as Sarah. She invited them in for coffee, insisting they warm up and dry off after their unexpected adventure. Inside, the house was small but cozy, filled with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and cinnamon. Sarah bustled around, making them comfortable while Buddy, now dry and energized, bounced around their feet. As they sipped their coffee, Sarah told them about Buddy. He was a rescue dog, she explained, and her constant companion. He had a knack for escaping the yard, but he'd never gone near the lake before. "I don't know how he got all the way out there," she said, shaking her head. "He must have really been on an adventure." Jack and Bill exchanged glances. They could see how much Buddy meant to Sarah. There was a bond between them that was undeniable. "Well," Jack said, rising to his feet, "we should probably get going. Glad we could reunite you with your furry friend." "Thank you again," Sarah said, her eyes shining with gratitude. "You saved my Buddy's life." As they walked out to their truck, Bill nudged Jack in the ribs. "She seems nice," he whispered. Jack nodded in agreement. There was something about Sarah that had struck a chord with both of them. Her kindness, her vulnerability, and the obvious love she had for her dog had touched them deeply. As they drove away, they couldn't shake the feeling that their encounter with Sarah and Buddy was more than just a chance event. It felt like the beginning of something they couldn't quite put their finger on. The following week passed in a blur for Jack and Bill. They went about their usual routines, Jack tending to his small hardware store, Bill working his shifts at the lumber yard. But their thoughts kept returning to Sarah and Buddy. One evening, while nursing a beer at their usual haunt, the rusty mug, Jack brought her up. "You ever think about that woman, Sarah?" Bill, who had been staring into the depths of his beer mug, looked up. "Yeah, actually. Wonder how she's doing." "Me too," Jack admitted. "And Buddy." He was a real character. A comfortable silence settled between them, the unspoken question hanging in the air. Finally, Bill broke it. "You think maybe we should check on them?" Jack grinned. Now who's being impatient? But the idea had taken root. The next day, they found themselves driving back to Sarah's house, a basket of fresh fruit and a bag of dog treats in tow. Sarah seemed genuinely pleased to see them. "This is a surprise," she exclaimed, ushering them in. Come in, come in. Buddy will be thrilled." Buddy indeed was thrilled. He greeted them with ecstatic barks and leaps, his tail whipping back and forth like a furry metronome. "He hasn't forgotten you," Sarah said, smiling. "He's been moping around the house ever since you left." They spent the afternoon chatting, learning more about Sarah's life. She was a librarian, she told them, with a passion for books and a quiet love for her small-town life. She had moved to the area a few years ago, seeking a change of pace after a difficult time in the city. "It was Buddy who really helped me settle in," she confessed, scratching the dog behind the ears. "He's my best friend." Jack and Bill felt a warmth spread through them as they watched Sarah interact with Buddy. There was an easy affection between them, a shared language of love and understanding. As the afternoon wore on, a comfortable camaraderie developed. They talked about everything and nothing: books, fishing, the quirks of small-town life. Jack discovered a shared love of classic literature with Sarah, while Bill regaled her with tales of his misadventures in the woods. By the time they left, it felt like they had known Sarah for years. The initial awkwardness had vanished, replaced by a sense of genuine connection. "We should do this again," Sarah said as they stood on her porch, the setting sun casting long shadows across the lawn. "Definitely," Jack agreed. "Maybe next time we can take Buddy for a walk in the woods." "He'd love that," Sarah said, beaming. As they drove away, Jack and Bill felt a sense of contentment they hadn't experienced in a long time. Their chance encounter with a drowning dog had led them to something unexpected, a friendship that promised to enrich their lives in ways they couldn't have imagined. The weeks that followed saw Jack and Bill becoming regular fixtures at Sarah's house. They'd often stop by after work, bringing takeout or a six-pack of beer, and spend the evening chatting on the porch, watching Buddy chase fireflies in the twilight. Sometimes they'd help Sarah with chores around the house, fixing a leaky faucet, mending a fence, or weeding the garden. Other times, they'd take Buddy for long walks in the woods, exploring the trails and enjoying the peace of the natural world. Their friendship deepened with each passing day. Jack found himself drawn to Sarah's quiet intelligence and gentle spirit. He loved the way her face lit up when she talked about books, and the way she could always find the right words to soothe Buddy when he was anxious. Bill, too, enjoyed Sarah's company. He appreciated her dry humor and her down-to-earth nature. He'd often tease her about her love for old movies and her obsession with crossword puzzles. But there was a warmth in his teasing, a sign of the growing affection he felt for her. One warm summer evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Sarah turned to Jack with a thoughtful expression. "You know," she said, "I've never had friends like you two before." Jack felt a blush creep up his neck. "We feel the same way, Sarah," he said, his voice a little gruff. "You've made this place feel like home," she continued, her eyes sparkling. "I was so lonely when I first moved here. I didn't know anyone. But now," her voice cracked slightly, "now I feel like I belong." Bill reached out and squeezed her shoulder. "You belong with us, Sarah," he said, his voice rough with emotion. That night, as Jack drove home, his heart felt full. He couldn't remember the last time he had felt so connected to someone. He realized that he was falling in love with Sarah, with her kindness, her resilience, and her quiet strength. The next day, he confessed his feelings to Bill. His friend simply nodded, a knowing smile on his face. "I know," Bill said. "I feel it too." Jack was taken aback. "You do?" Bill nodded again. "Yeah, but it's okay. We'll figure it out." And so they did. They talked openly and honestly, acknowledging their feelings for Sarah without letting it come between them. They agreed that Sarah's happiness was their priority, and they would support her, no matter what her choice might be. Life, however, had other plans. The idyllic summer days continued, filled with laughter, shared meals, and long walks in the woods. Jack and Bill found themselves drawn deeper into Sarah's world, their lives intertwined with hers in a way they had never anticipated. But beneath the surface of their newfound happiness, a shadow lurked. Sarah had been feeling unusually tired, experiencing bouts of dizziness and unexplained aches. She initially dismissed it as stress, but as the symptoms persisted, a nagging worry began to gnaw at her. One afternoon, while Jack and Bill were helping her paint her kitchen, Sarah suddenly collapsed. The paintbrush clattered to the floor, and she crumpled to her knees, clutching her head. "Sarah!" Jack cried, rushing to her side. "What's wrong?" Sarah's face was pale, her breathing shallow. I don't know," she gasped, her voice weak. "Dizzy." Bill immediately called 911, his voice trembling with concern. They waited anxiously for the ambulance, Jack cradling Sarah's head in his lap, whispering reassurances. At the hospital, after a battery of tests and scans, the doctor delivered the devastating news. Sarah had a brain tumor. It was malignant and it was growing rapidly. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Jack and Bill sat in stunned silence, the weight of the doctor's words crushing them. They couldn't comprehend how this vibrant, loving woman could be facing such a cruel fate. Sarah, however, met the news with a quiet courage that both amazed and heartbroken them. She faced the upcoming surgery and treatments with a stoicism that belied her fear. "I'm going to fight this," she told them, her voice firm. "I have too much to live for," and fight she did. Through the grueling rounds of surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation, Sarah never lost her spirit. Jack and Bill were her constant companions, taking turns driving her to appointments, sitting by her bedside, and offering unwavering support. Buddy, too, seemed to sense the gravity of the situation. He became Sarah's shadow, never leaving her side. He would lie quietly by her bed, his head resting on her arm, his presence a source of comfort and strength. Despite their best efforts, Sarah's condition worsened. The tumor was relentless, its tendrils reaching deeper into her brain. The once vibrant woman grew frail and weak, her energy fading with each passing day. Yet, even in the face of her own mortality, Sarah remained concerned about Jack and Bill. She worried about the toll her illness was taking on them, about the burden she was placing on their shoulders. "You don't have to do this," she'd say, her voice weak. "You have your own lives." But they wouldn't hear of it. They were in this together, they told her. They would be there for her until the very end. The autumn leaves swirled and fell, mirroring the decline of Sarah's health. Each day brought new challenges, new losses. Her once bright eyes grew dim, her laughter faded, her voice became a whisper. Jack and Bill took turns staying with her, reading to her, playing her favorite music, and simply holding her hand. They shared stories of their lives, their hopes, their regrets, wanting to fill the silence with something other than the ticking clock of mortality. Buddy remained steadfastly by her side, his big brown eyes filled with worry. He would nudge her hand with his nose, whine softly, and lick away the tears that escaped her closed eyelids. One crisp November morning, with the first snow dusting the ground, Sarah slipped away. She died peacefully in her sleep, with Jack and Bill holding her hands, Buddy curled up at her feet. The grief that followed was a tidal wave, engulfing them in its raw intensity. Jack felt a hollowness in his chest, a void that nothing could fill. Bill retreated into himself, his usual boisterousness replaced by a somber silence. They arranged Sarah's funeral. The finality of their loss hit them with full force. In the days that followed, they found solace in each other's company. They would sit for hours in Sarah's living room, surrounded by her things, sharing memories and tears. Buddy, too, seemed lost and confused, wandering the house with a mournful air. The question of what to do with Buddy hung heavy in the air. Sarah had no family, no close relatives. It was clear that she had intended for them to take care of him, but they weren't sure if they were up to the task. "I don't know if I can do this, Jack," Bill confessed one evening, his voice thick with emotion. "Every time I look at him, I see Sarah." Jack nodded, understanding the sentiment all too well. "I know, Bill, but we can't just abandon him. He's all we have left of her." And so they made the decision to keep Buddy. They brought him back to Jack's house, where he had more space to run and play. They took turns walking him, feeding him, and trying to fill the void left by Sarah. But Buddy was grieving too. He was listless and withdrawn, his playful spirit extinguished. He would spend hours staring out the window, as if searching for his lost companion. Jack and Bill did their best to comfort him, but they felt helpless in the face of his sorrow. They knew that they couldn't replace Sarah, that no amount of love and attention could erase the pain of her absence. As the weeks turned into months, the sharp edges of their grief began to soften. The pain was still there, a dull ache in their hearts, but they were learning to live with it. They found comfort in their shared memories of Sarah, in the stories they told each other, in the laughter they occasionally shared. And slowly, gradually, Buddy began to heal too. He started to wag his tail again, to play fetch in the yard, to greet them with enthusiastic barks when they came home. He was still a shadow of his former self, but there was a spark of life returning to his eyes. One day, while walking Buddy in the woods, they came across a clearing they had often visited with Sarah. As they stood there, remembering the happy times they had spent together, a sense of peace washed over them. They realized that Sarah was gone, but her love, her spirit, remained. It was in the rustling leaves, the whispering wind, the gentle warmth of the sun on their faces. And it was in Buddy, in his loyal companionship, his unconditional love. He was a living reminder of Sarah, a testament to the enduring power of love and friendship. Winter settled over the small town, blanketing everything in a pristine layer of white. The holidays approached, but the festive spirit felt muted. a pale reflection of the joy that had filled Sarah's house the previous year. Jack and Bill, now sharing Jack's house along with Buddy, navigated the season with a quiet solemnity. They decorated a small tree, more for Buddy's sake than their own, and exchanged simple gifts, their hearts heavy with the absence of Sarah's bright smile and infectious laughter. The new year dawned, bringing with it a sense of renewal, a fragile hope for healing. They fell into a comfortable routine, their days revolving around work, caring for Buddy, and the quiet companionship they found in each other. One evening, while watching an old movie on television, Jack noticed Buddy behaving strangely. He was staring intently at the screen, his head cocked, a low whine escaping his throat. The movie featured a scene with a dog performing tricks, and Buddy seemed mesmerized. "Look at him," Jack chuckled, nudging Bill. "He thinks he's on TV." But Buddy's behavior continued. He started mimicking the actions of the dog on screen, sitting, staying, and even rolling over on command. "Well, I'll be," Bill exclaimed, his eyes widening in surprise. "He's learning tricks." Intrigued, they started experimenting. They used simple commands, rewarding Buddy with treats and praise when he obeyed. To their astonishment, Buddy proved to be a quick learner. He mastered basic commands in no time, and soon he was performing more complex tricks, fetching specific objects, jumping through hoops, and even balancing a treat on his nose. They discovered that Buddy had a natural aptitude for learning, a hidden talent that had lain dormant until now. It was as if Sarah's absence had unlocked something within him, a desire to please, to connect, to fill the void in his own way. Jack and Bill found themselves engrossed in Buddy's training. It gave them a shared purpose, a focus for their energy that helped to alleviate the lingering sadness. They spent hours working with Buddy, their laughter echoing through the house, a welcome sound that had been absent for far too long. Buddy, too, seemed to thrive on the attention. His eyes sparkled with enthusiasm, his tail wagged incessantly, his whole being radiating joy. He reveled in the praise and affection, and the bond between them grew stronger with each passing day. As word of Buddy's talents spread, they were approached by the local animal shelter. They were looking for volunteers to help train rescue dogs, and Buddy, with his remarkable abilities, seemed like the perfect candidate. Hesitantly at first, Jack and Bill agreed to give it a try. They started bringing Buddy to the shelter once a week, working with the other dogs, teaching them basic commands and socializing them. To their surprise, they found the experience incredibly rewarding. Seeing the transformation in the dogs, the newfound confidence and trust in their eyes, filled them with a sense of purpose they hadn't felt since Sarah's passing. Buddy, too, seemed to enjoy his new role as a canine mentor. He was patient and gentle with the other dogs, guiding them with a quiet authority that earned him the respect and admiration of both the dogs and the shelter staff. As they worked together, Jack and Bill realized that they had stumbled upon a new path, a way to honor Sarah's memory and make a positive impact on the world. They were carrying on her legacy of kindness and compassion, one rescued dog at a time. Spring arrived, bringing with it a sense of hope and renewal. The snow melted, the days grew longer, and the world seemed to awaken from its winter slumber. Jack and Bill, their hearts lighter, their spirits lifted, embraced the new season with a newfound optimism. They continued their work at the animal shelter, their bond with Buddy deepening with each passing day. Buddy, now a certified therapy dog, was a beloved fixture at the shelter, his gentle demeanor and remarkable abilities bringing comfort and joy to both the dogs and the staff. One day, a new volunteer arrived at the shelter, a young woman named Emily, with a warm smile and a passion for animals. She was immediately drawn to Buddy, impressed by his intelligence and his gentle nature. Emily started working alongside Jack and Bill, assisting with the dog training and sharing her knowledge of animal behavior. She was a natural with the dogs, her calm presence and gentle touch earning their trust and affection. Jack and Bill found themselves enjoying Emily's company. She was a breath of fresh air, her youthful energy and enthusiasm a welcome contrast to their own more subdued personalities. They shared stories, laughter, and a common love for animals, forging a friendship that brought a new dimension to their lives. Emily, in turn, appreciated their kindness and wisdom. She admired their dedication to the shelter and their unwavering love for Buddy. She saw in them the kind of quiet strength and resilience that she aspired to. As the weeks turned into months, a comfortable camaraderie developed between them. They spent more and more time together, not just at the shelter, but also outside of it, going for hikes, having picnics, and sharing meals at each other's homes. One warm summer evening, as they sat on Jack's porch, watching the fireflies dance in the twilight, Emily turned to them with a thoughtful expression. "You know," she said, "I've never met anyone quite like you two." Jack and Bill exchanged a knowing glance. They had heard those words before from Sarah, and a bittersweet ache resonated in their hearts. "We're just two old guys trying to make a difference," Jack said, his voice gruff but gentle. "You're more than that," Emily insisted. "You're kind, compassionate, and you have a love for animals that's truly inspiring." She paused, then added, "And you have Buddy. He's a very special dog." Buddy, lying at their feet, thumped his tail in agreement. That night, as Jack and Bill prepared for bed, they couldn't help but reflect on the unexpected turn their lives had taken. They had started the year grieving the loss of Sarah, their hearts heavy with sorrow. Now, they found themselves surrounded by new friendships, new possibilities, and a renewed sense of purpose. They realized that life, even in its unpredictability, had a way of offering unexpected gifts, new beginnings, and the chance to find joy and fulfillment even in the face of loss. They had lost Sarah, but they had gained each other, they had gained Buddy, and now they had gained Emily. And they knew, with a certainty that warmed their hearts, that Sarah would have been happy for them. Summer faded into autumn, the leaves turning vibrant hues of red, orange, and gold. The days grew shorter, the air crisp, and a sense of cozy anticipation settled over the town as the holidays approached. Jack and Bill, their lives now enriched by Emily's presence, found themselves looking forward to the season with a lightness they hadn't felt in years. They planned festive gatherings at Jack's house, decorated with Emily's creative touch, and shared laughter and stories around the crackling fireplace. Buddy, always at the center of their lives, thrived in the warmth of their companionship. He reveled in the attention, the playful games, and the endless supply of treats that came with the holiday season. One evening, as they sat around the fire, sipping hot cocoa and reminiscing about Christmases past, Emily turned to them with a mischievous glint in her eyes. "You know," she said, "we should enter Buddy in the town's annual Christmas pageant." Jack and Bill looked at her in surprise. "The pageant?" Jack questioned. "But that's for kids." "Not just for kids," Emily countered with a smile. "They have a pet costume contest too, and with Buddy's talents, I'm sure he could win." Intrigued by the idea, they agreed to give it a try. They spent the following weeks brainstorming costume ideas, settling on a charming Santa Claus outfit complete with a tiny red hat and a fluffy white beard. The day of the pageant arrived, and the town square was abuzz with excitement. Children in colorful costumes ran around, their laughter echoing through the crisp winter air. Families gathered, their faces lit by the twinkling Christmas lights adorning the surrounding trees. Jack and Bill, with Buddy proudly sporting his Santa costume, joined the throng of participants. Buddy, ever the showman, lapped up the attention, his tail wagging furiously as he greeted the other contestants and their owners. The pet costume contest was a highlight of the event. Dogs of all shapes and sizes paraded before the judges, dressed in an array of creative outfits. There were reindeer, elves, snowmen, and even a miniature Grinch. But it was Buddy, with his impeccable manners and impressive tricks, who stole the show. He sat, stayed, and rolled over on command, his performance eliciting cheers and applause from the audience. When the judges announced the winner, it was no surprise that Buddy, the charming Santa dog, took home the coveted first prize. Jack and Bill beamed with pride, their hearts swelling with affection for their talented companion. As they left the pageant, carrying the trophy and a very happy Buddy, They felt a sense of joy and fulfillment that transcended the festive occasion. They realized that Buddy, their constant companion, their furry friend, had not only brought them closer together but had also opened their hearts to new experiences and new friendships. And they knew, with a certainty that warmed their souls, that Sarah, wherever she was smiling down on them, her heart filled with love and pride for her beloved Buddy and the two men who had become his devoted guardians. The years that followed flowed by like the gentle current of a familiar river, carrying Jack and Bill along a path of quiet contentment. Their lives, once defined by routine and solitude, were now filled with purpose and companionship. Buddy, their faithful companion, remained a constant source of joy and laughter. He continued his work at the animal shelter, his gentle presence bringing comfort and hope to countless abandoned and neglected dogs. He became a local celebrity, his story spreading throughout the town and beyond, inspiring others with his resilience and his remarkable abilities. Jack and Bill, with Emily by their side, embraced their roles as Buddy's devoted guardians and ambassadors. They organized fundraising events for the shelter, gave talks at schools and community centers, and advocated for animal welfare wherever they went. Their friendship with Emily deepened, evolving into a cherished bond that enriched their lives in countless ways. She became a part of their family, sharing holidays, birthdays, and quiet evenings by the fire. She brought a youthful energy and a fresh perspective to their world, while they, in turn, offered her wisdom, stability, and the unconditional love of two men who had found a renewed sense of purpose in their unexpected roles as mentors and friends. As time passed, the sharp edges of their grief for Sarah softened, leaving behind a gentle ache, a bittersweet reminder of the love they had shared. They often spoke of her, sharing memories and laughter, keeping her spirit alive in their hearts. One crisp autumn afternoon, as they sat on Jack's porch, watching the leaves fall and the sun paint the sky in hues of gold and crimson, Bill turned to Jack with a thoughtful expression. "You know, Jack," he said, "I think Sarah would be proud of us." Jack nodded, a tear glistening in his eye. "I think so too, Bill. I think she'd be happy to see how far we've come." They sat in comfortable silence, their thoughts drifting back to the day they had rescued Buddy from the lake, the day their lives had taken an unexpected turn, leading them down a path of love, loss, and ultimately redemption. They had saved Buddy, but in many ways, Buddy had saved them. He had brought them together, given them a shared purpose, and opened their hearts to new possibilities. He had taught them the true meaning of companionship, loyalty, and unconditional love. And as they watched Buddy chase a fallen leaf across the lawn, his tail wagging with joyful abandon, they knew that they had found a happiness they had never thought possible, a happiness born from loss, nurtured by friendship, and forever entwined with the love of a very special dog.